Welcome back to another deep dive.
Always good to be piving.
You know, I love November.
Oh, yeah.
Big fan of fall in general, but this time of year in the UK, we've got something special going on.
We do. Bonfire Night, November 5th.
You know, I don't think we've ever done a deep dive on Bonfire Night,
I don't think so, no.
which is wild because it's such a huge part. I mean, it's such a spectacle, but it's also such a huge part of, British history and culture.
It really is, yeah.
So let's get into it. Let's deep dive into Bonfire Night.
Let's do it.
So, I mean, bonfires and fireworks, that's all pretty self-explanatory, but it's really the history behind it that I think is so fascinating. And it all goes back to 1605. So paint the picture for us. 1605, England. What's going on?
Okay, so 1605, England. We've got King James I on the throne.
Protestant king.
Protestant king, yeah. And this is important because you've got this, pretty serious religious tension brewing in the country. You've got a Protestant state, but there's still a significant Catholic population. And they're not exactly feeling, welcomed by the ruling class.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resentment.
Yeah. And then enter a man named Guy Fawkes.
Ah, yes. Guy Fawkes.
Our main man. Who I think is so interesting because he's almost become this kind of almost folk hero in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting how he's been sort of, reinterpreted over the years.
But at the time he was, considered a traitor and a villain and all that.
Right.
So he and a group of fellow Catholics, they come up with this plan, the Gunpowder Plot.
Which was a pretty audacious plan, let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, to blow up the Houses of Parliament, that's not messing around.
No, not at all. And we have to remember the significance of Parliament at the time. I mean, this is where the king would address both houses.
During the state opening.
Exactly. The state opening. It's this hugely symbolic moment, outlining the government's agenda. I mean, to target that, it's a real statement.
Yeah. And they weren't playing around. I mean, 36 barrels of gunpowder. That's what they managed to stash in a cellar beneath the House of Lords.
I mean, had they succeeded, it would have been devastating. We're talking massive casualties, not to mention the political fallout.
Yeah, it's almost hard to wrap your head around how different things might have been.
Yeah.
But of course, the plot was foiled.
Foiled, yes. Thanks to an anonymous letter.
An anonymous letter.
Warning a Catholic lord to stay away from Parliament on that night.
Which is wild. Who wrote that letter?
Still a mystery.
A true historical mystery.
Who wrote it? What were their motivations? Was it to save lives? To sabotage the plot? We might never know.
But because of that letter, Guy Fawkes is caught red-handed guarding the gunpowder.
November 4th, the night before the state opening.
Yeah. Talk about a close call.
Yeah.
So November 5th then becomes this day of celebration.
And a national sigh of relief.
Yeah. Celebrating the king's survival. Celebrating the fact that Parliament didn't get blown to smithereens. But then over time, that celebration evolved into the Bonfire Night that we know today.
And that evolution is fascinating. It went from a very specific religious celebration to something much more communal and symbolic.
Yeah. And that's where the burning of the effigies comes in. The Guy Fawkes effigies.
Right. Made of straw and old clothes. And tossing those effigies onto bonfire.
It becomes this way to sort of symbolically destroy the threat that he represented.
Right.
It's not so much about celebrating the king's survival anymore. It's about this collective victory over, oppression and tyranny.
Yeah. And I think there's also something very cathartic about it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of like collective exhale.
Releasing those anxieties, those tensions.
And you can imagine, people gathering around these bonfires, sharing stories, maybe even poking fun at the failed plotters.
Yeah.
And of course, enjoying some traditional treats.
Oh, yeah. Toffee apples, parking gingerbread.
Yeah.
It's a real community event.
Yeah. And of course, the modern celebration has expanded beyond just bonfires and effigies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got these massive organized fireworks displays. It's like a whole spectacle.
Yeah, like choreographed light shows set to music. I mean, they're really impressive.
Yeah, and it's interesting how those fireworks, exploding across the sky, they kind of echo the explosive potential of that gunpowder.
That's true.
Hidden beneath Parliament. So it's like a reminder of how close things came to disaster, but also how that danger was averted.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also love that different regions in the UK have their own unique Bonfire Night traditions.
Oh, yeah, like the torchlight processions.
Yeah.
Or the special songs and rhymes.
Yeah, it's not just this, one-size-fits-all holiday.
It's very much woven into the fabric of local communities,
Yeah.
which I think is what gives it such staying power.
Yeah. And I mean, even though those religious tensions have obviously faded over time,
Right.
Bonfire Night, I think, still carries this echo of that past.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think about how we use rituals and celebrations to remember, to warn, to create a sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we can't talk about Bonfire Night without mentioning safety.
Yes, yes.
Because as beautiful as bonfires and fireworks are, they can be dangerous if not handled properly.
Absolutely. I mean, attending organized displays is always the best way to go. They have safety precautions in place.
Yeah. And I mean, fireworks are meant to be admired from a distance, not handled directly.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, as you're, gathering around a bonfire or marveling at a fireworks display this November 5th,
Yeah.
remember that you're participating in a tradition that spans centuries. It's a blend of history, rebellion, resilience, community.
Yeah. And it kind of makes you think, what other events in history, maybe even in your own community, are worth commemorating?
Yeah.
What stories do we want to keep alive, and how can we do that in a way that resonates with future generations?
That's a fantastic question. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Bonfire Night. Stay curious and stay safe.
Stay safe.